You know that feeling, don't you? That mix of uh, dread and maybe a tiny flicker of hope when the annual performance review email lands.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
For so many of us, it feels less like a conversation with us and more like a judgment of us. This big high-stakes event that kind of dictates our worth of the next year.
It's been the default for decades, hasn't it? Just the way things are done.
Exactly. But what if that whole traditional approach to managing performance at work isn't just a bit flawed, but maybe fundamentally, even profoundly broken?
Hmm.
And what if this, new era of work we keep hearing about demands a completely different philosophy?
That's the big question.
So today, that's exactly what we're doing, taking a deep dive into that precise question. Our mission, really, is to unpack something called the Performance Development Blueprint.
Right.
It's framed as this radical new model that aims to completely transform how organizations think about human potential, really focusing on growth, continuous learning, true
It's a
innovation.
big shift.
Yeah. So whether you're leading a team, maybe just trying to navigate your own career path, or honestly, if you're just curious about what makes effective organizations tick, this deep dive should give you a shortcut. A way to understand a more human-centric and, frankly, probably a much more effective way to handle performance.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Okay, let's unpack this. For what feels like forever, performance management was built around evaluation, ranking.
Hmm.
Let's be honest, often control.
Yeah, that control piece is
It
significant.
was a system designed mostly for the organization, right?
Yeah.
To judge employees, slot them into boxes, make things neat.
Uh-huh. Put them on a curve, maybe.
Exactly. But that model is now being fundamentally challenged.
It absolutely is. And a key insight from this blueprint, this new thinking, is that it suggests a fundamental reorientation, like a complete pivot.
Okay.
It proposes we stop treating performance as this static thing to be evaluated and categorized, and instead see it as something dynamic,
Yeah.
something to be developed and continuously improved.
Developed, not just judged.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this isn't just tweaking an HR process, it requires a deep organizational commitment to what the blueprint calls these non-negotiable human-centric principles.
Non-negotiable. I like that.
Well, they're not just nice to haves. They genuinely reorient an organization's purpose away from judgment and control towards fostering growth and potential.
Okay, so let's dive into those principles then,
Right.
because it sounds like they really underpin everything else. The first one speaks right to that shift you mentioned, moving from evaluation to development. What does that really mean for a manager? Like, how do they stop being a judge and become a coach?
It's a big ask, but it's crucial. It means the primary purpose, the main goal of any performance system has to become growing the capacity of people. And through that, the capacity of the whole organization.
Right.
For managers, this is a huge mindset shift. Instead of being the person who gives the grade or delivers the verdict, their role becomes more like a mentor, a facilitator,
Mm.
a coach who's actively supporting their team members' learning and development.
So less referee, more team captain.
Kind of, yeah. It's about empowering that growth, not just tallying up the scores at the end.
That's a massive change.
Yeah.
And it leads right into the second principle, doesn't it? Replacing that big, scary annual review with continuous dialogue. What's the actual difference for an employee moving from that one high-stakes event to more frequent informal chats? What kind of vibe does that create?
Oh, the difference is immense. Think about it. Those big, formal annual reviews, they often create this climate of anxiety defensiveness.
Yeah, you brace yourself.
Totally. But if you move to frequent, low-stakes, informal conversations, maybe weekly, maybe bi-weekly check-ins, you allow for real-time coaching, real-time course correction.
Makes sense.
And think about the psychological safety. That feeling that you can actually speak up, share an idea, admit you messed up, maybe without fearing the axe is going to fall immediately.
Right.
When feedback is continuous and informal, it just becomes part of the workflow. It's less threatening and way more effective for actual learning.
That continuous loop feels so much more practical for making adjustments on the fly. But then the blueprint throws in a really interesting third principle. Focus on the system, not just the individual. Why is it so important to look beyond just one person's performance?
This is huge. Because how often do we jump to blaming an individual when the real problem is the process or the tools they have or just the environment they're stuck working in?
All the time, probably.
Exactly. So this principle demands we take a diagnostic look at the organizational system itself. It means employees aren't just, subjects being evaluated. They become partners, valuable partners in finding and fixing the things that are getting in the way of everyone's success.
So it reframes performance issues.
Completely. From your fault to what's broken in the system that we need to fix together.
That sounds way more empowering. Okay, fourth principle, being forward-looking and aspirational. How does that change the conversation about someone's career, moving away from just dissecting past mistakes?
It shifts the whole focus. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong last quarter, the emphasis moves to future potential, career aspirations, skill development.
Where are you headed?
Exactly. It's about where are you going and how can we help you get there? Not just where did you fall short last time? It's inherently more motivating, right? And it aligns individual growth with where the organization needs to go, creates a sense of purpose looking ahead.
And then principle 5,
Yeah.
eliminate direct comparison. Stacking people against each other. What was so bad about ranking employees, and what's the goal of this new approach instead?
Well, ranking often creates this really destructive internal competition. It can kill collaboration, make
Yeah.
teams less cohesive.
Pitting people against each other.
Yeah, and this principle recognizes something profound. Everyone's on a different path. Everyone brings unique strengths, faces different challenges. So instead of measuring you against your colleague, performance gets assessed against your own progress, your goals, your unique contributions.
That sounds much healthier.
It fosters a more supportive environment. Success isn't a zero-sum game anymore.
Right. Okay, and finally, the sixth principle, the one some call the first domino, decoupling development from compensation. Why is separating those two conversations so absolutely critical for that psychological safety you mentioned, and really for making all these other principles work?
This one is arguably the linchpin, because it gets right at human psychology. By administratively separating the Bay discussion from feedback and development talks, you basically neutralize the fear, that defensiveness that makes honest dialogue almost impossible sometimes.
Removes the threat.
Exactly. When a manager sits down with you and you know your salary isn't on the line in that specific conversation, that knot in your stomach loosens up, right?
Definitely.
You're far more likely to admit a mistake, ask for help, maybe even give some tough feedback about a process that's not working, because the immediate financial threat is gone. It's this act of decoupling that creates the real psychological safety needed for that high EQ coaching to actually happen. For real, unfiltered learning to occur. Without it, the fear of hitting the wallet can just overshadow any attempt at constructive conversation.
Wow. Okay, so just to recap quickly, these 6 principles: evaluation to development, continuous dialogue, focus on the system, forward-looking, no direct comparison, and critically, decoupling development from pay. They aren't just small tweaks.
Not at all.
They collectively create this really profound philosophical shift in how organizations can genuinely empower their people. It's like a whole new worldview for cultivating talent.
Well put.
So with those principles laid out, the big question becomes, how do we actually do this? How do we turn this philosophy into something practical, something that works day to day in an organization?
Right, the how. This is where the systems-informed, EQ-driven development cycle comes in. And it's presented not just as another HR program to roll out.
No.
It's positioned as more of a strategic blueprint, a way to actually rewire an organization's operational and cultural DNA.
Rewire the DNA.
Okay, and it's built on this dual foundation, intellectually speaking, very carefully designed for both human thriving and organizational success. On one side, you've got W. Edwards Deming's systems thinking.
Deming, right. Famous quality guru.
Exactly. His work tells us what to manage, which is primarily the system itself, recognizing, like we said, that most problems are systemic, not individual failings.
Got it. And the other side.
That's Daniel Goleman's work on emotional intelligence, EQ. That guides us on how to manage the human interactions within that system, emphasizing empathy, self-awareness, relationship skills.
So systems thinking for the what? EQ for the how.
You got it. It brings those two powerful ideas together.
Okay, so this isn't just a checklist then. It's a cycle, a continuous loop. How does this systems-informed, EQ-driven development cycle actually play out? What are the core parts, and how do they link up to drive that growth and system improvement?
Yeah, it's definitely designed as an interconnected loop. Let's break down the 5 main components because their real power comes from how they feed into each other.
Okay, let's do it.
So the cycle usually kicks off each quarter with collaborative goal setting. And the tool often used here is OKRs, objectives, and key results.
OKRs, yeah, hearing a lot about those.
Right. The purpose here is really clear. Align teams and individuals with the top-level strategy, inspire ambitious contributions, and really foster innovation. These OKRs are typically transparent across the organization, which helps with collaboration.
Transparency is key.
Absolutely. But here's the crucial link back to the principles. Achieving these OKRs is explicitly decoupled from compensation.
There it is again?
Yep.
Yeah.
They serve as a
Mhm.
compass, right? Providing direction, inspiring innovative thinking. They're not meant to be a high-stakes scorecard that makes people afraid to take risks.
So taking the direct money link off the table is meant to change the whole psychology around goals. Make it less about hitting a number for a bonus, more about real ambition and trying new things.
That's the idea.
What are the biggest challenges you see companies face when they try to make that mental leap?
Well, the biggest hurdle is often just that ingrained habit, linking every metric to pay or bonus. Leaders really have to start trusting that people can be intrinsically motivated, that they'll still strive for excellence, even if there isn't a direct dollar figure attached to that specific goal.
Trusting people.
Yeah, and it takes really consistent communication to reframe what OKRs are for emphasizing learning, alignment, stretching, not just evaluation.
Okay, so after the goals are set collaboratively, what's next in the cycle?
Next up are the continuous coaching check-ins. You could think of these as the ongoing heartbeat of the whole model.
The heartbeat. Nice.
So maybe weekly, maybe bi-weekly, managers and their team members have these informal coaching sessions. They're guided by those high EQ principles we talked about: empathy, active listening.
Right.
And the focus is on progress towards goals, sure, but also identifying and removing their systemic roadblocks we mentioned, and just generally providing real-time support for the employees' growth and well-being.
So it's proactive.
Very much so. It's about ongoing dialogue, replacing that old model of waiting for a problem to blow up before you talk about it.
Instead of waiting for the annual review disaster, you're tackling stuff as it happens. That seems incredibly useful for quick course correction. Okay, what follows the coaching check-ins?
Then we have system improvement input. This is where Deming's famous 946 rule really gets put into practice.
The 946 rule, remind me.
Yeah, it's Deming's observation that something like 94% of performance problems and failures are caused by the system itself, the processes, the tools, the structure, not by the individual employee.
Yeah.
Only about 6% is down to the individual.
Wow, 94%. That's huge.
It is. So this component creates a formal but lightweight channel for all employees to provide structured feedback on those systemic issues that get in their way.
Like what specifically?
Things like process friction, maybe resource gaps, communication breakdowns, confusing priorities. Stuff like that.
The things that drive you crazy day to day.
Exactly. This feedback gets aggregated, analyzed, and then leadership reviews it and is responsible for actually starting projects to fix these systemic problems. It truly turns employees from just cogs in the machine into active, informed partners in making the whole organization better.
That really is a powerful shift, giving everyone a voice in fixing the machine itself. So you've got goals, continuous coaching, input on the system. How does the actual review part happen now? What takes the place of that old performance review meeting?
That brings us to the holistic contribution review. This usually happens semi-annually or maybe annually, and it's designed as a structured, forward-looking conversation that completely replaces the traditional review.
Completely replaces it. Okay.
And let me stress this. It is emphatically not about assigning a rating or a ranking. That's out.
No numbers, no grades.
Right. Instead, it synthesizes qualitative feedback from peers, the employee's own self-reflection, and the manager's perspective. The whole conversation is framed around questions like, what was your overall impact? What did you learn? How did you contribute to improving our systems or processes? And importantly, what are your goals and aspirations looking forward?
So it's a rich developmental conversation.
Exactly, about overall growth and contribution, not a backward-looking judgment of perceived failures.
Okay, that makes sense. But then the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Compensation. Advancement. If it's decoupled, how do those decisions get made?
That's the final component, compensation and advancement decisions. And this is handled as an entirely separate management process.
Wholly separate.
Yes, often conducted annually, maybe several weeks or even a couple of months after the holistic contribution review conversations have happened. In what are often called talent calibration meetings, leaders get together and they use a whole range of inputs. They look at insights from the contribution review, sure, but also things like demonstrated skills, the scope of the person's responsibility, market value data for similar roles, and the person's overall impact on the business.
So a much broader picture.
A much broader, more comprehensive picture to make fair, defensible, and market-aligned decisions about pay rises, bonuses, promotions, that kind of thing. And Again, doing it separately is what protects the integrity and psychological safety of the whole developmental cycle we just walked through.
Right. Okay, I can really see the flow now. You've got the collaborative goal setting feeding into the continuous coaching check-ins, which generate system improvement input, all leading up to this holistic contribution review, and then completely separately, the compensation and advancement decisions.
Exactly.
It creates this, engine, a dynamic, growth-focused engine that's meant to continuously push both the individuals and the organization forward.
That's the design.
Now, we've touched on it a few times, hinted at it, but let's really zero in on the most critical piece here. The strategic lever in this whole blueprint. You said the model's power is in how interconnected it is, but that the entire mechanism is basically unlocked by one single foundational choice.
That's right. It is, without a doubt, the decoupling of compensation from development. It's called the first domino that must fall, for a very good reason.
Why is it so critical?
Well, what's really insightful is understanding that this decoupling isn't just, shuffling HR processes around. It's fundamentally about shifting power dynamics in human behavior. Because when pay is not on the table during a feedback session or a development conversation, remember that not a fear we talked about?
Yeah.
It loosens. An employee is far more likely to admit they need help or point out a real problem with the process if they don't have that immediate fear that it's going to directly hit their paycheck right then and there.
Takes the edge off.
Completely. And that creates the genuine psychological safety that's absolutely essential for that high EQ coaching to work. For real, honest, unfiltered learning and feedback to actually happen.
So the coaching gets better.
Exactly. And that better coaching then enables people to do more genuine self-reflection. It also empowers them to give that candid feedback on systemic barriers we need, again, without fearing immediate financial blowback.
It connects everything.
Precisely. Decoupling isn't just one step out of 5, it's the strategic lever. It's the key that unlocks the potential of the other 4 components to function the way they're intended. It creates this virtuous cycle of individual growth feeding organizational growth and vice versa.
And without pulling that lever.
Without that crucial separation, the whole system could easily falter. It could just collapse back into the old, evaluative, fear-driven model it's trying so hard to replace.
So if you don't make that specific, deliberate choice to separate pay from development talks, the whole engine might just sputter out.
That's the risk. It really is the linchpin, the thing that makes all the rest of it possible. It genuinely transforms the relationship between the employee, their manager, and the organization itself.
Wow. Okay. So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for us, for you listening? The core message seems pretty clear. That old era of performance evaluation, the anxiety, the judgment, it's giving way to performance development.
A fundamental shift in perspective.
And this blueprint offers a really robust, human-centric path to building systems that actually empower people, empower them to grow, to innovate, to really thrive within their organizations.
But it's important to say this kind of transformation isn't easy. It takes real courage from leadership. It takes nuance in how you implement it. And it requires a deep understanding of these underlying principles we've discussed.
That's not just plug and play.
Definitely not. It's a fundamentally new way of operating. It's about designing a system that, in turn, helps create and elevate its people, fostering both that individual flourishing and collective success.
And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. As you go about your own work, whether you lead a team, are part of one, or even just observe how organizations work, how might thinking about your own contributions and growth through this lens, the lens of systemic improvement rather than just individual fault, how might that change your approach to work, to collaboration, regardless of your role?
That's a powerful question to ponder.
Something to think about until our next deep dive.